Dear 10 ministry partners and friends, I greet you from Split, Croatia. We have a nice summer, hot weather. My name is Vjeko and I'm the pastor of Good News Church here. I hope that you are all well, that God's grace is sufficient in all your needs, circumstances, and everything you are going through. I would like to share something about the urgent need for the gospel. In the last 1 year, we have seen many needs, medical, economical, physical, and sometimes we can forget about the need for the gospel. And before I start speaking, I would like to read from 1 Peter 2:9, where Apostle Peter says this, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light." Who called you? I don't know, do you agree with these words from Martin Lloyd-Jones, English pastor and preacher, and he was called the last of the Puritans, and he says this, "To me, the work of preaching or sharing the gospel is the highest and the greatest and the most glorious calling to which anyone can ever be called. If you want something in addition to that, I would say without any hesitation that the most urgent need in the Christian church today is true preaching or sharing the gospel. And it is obviously the greatest need of the world also around us. Do we believe this to be true? I want to encourage you in a sense and in one ask you a question. Do you believe that we have been called to the highest and the greatest and the most glorious calling to which anyone can ever be called? You are called. Sometimes when the circumstances are hard, we forget about it. Sometimes when hardship is hard and when situations around us are not flourishing, we forget about it. But God has called your name. God has called my name. God has called every believer's name. And he has called us with a purpose to declare his glory. First thing I want to encourage you, and in knowing the urgent need for the gospel, is that we are called. We are called by God. The second thing I want to read is Romans 1:14-17. And Apostle Paul says this. From Romans 1:14-17, Apostle Paul says this, "I'm obligated both to Greeks and non-Greeks, both to the wise and the foolish. That is why I'm so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith." We have a calling and we are obligated. Calling from God, an obligation, and obligated to people. You know, in verse 16, Paul says, "I'm not ashamed of the gospel." We live in time and in the world that laugh and despise the gospel. Gospel is not in, because the world around us is spiritual dead, spiritual blind, moral decline, corrupt, everywhere we look around. And it's not anymore in to preach the gospel. And that's why there's a big attack on whatever we do. It's when we speak the gospel. It's a big attack. Now the question, what I want to not ask you, but just to remind us, what is the gospel? And if we would all, if it's able that we can sit together, I hope one day we will be able again. We all have different ideas, but I would suggest that the gospel is Jesus in fullness. Jesus in fullness. It's his salvation, yes, because it's a first step and he saves us and we are his children. But is that all? It's his lordship. Jesus is Lord. The gospel is his kingdom. His kingdom come, his will be done. The gospel is his will on earth as it is in heaven. The gospel is his principles. The gospel is his lifestyle and many more things. And if we read through the gospels, we can see that Jesus in fullness is the gospel that we should be preaching, sharing, and not be ashamed of. The gospel is the power of God for salvation. It is the power of God for salvation. I don't know about you from whatever country you are now in. In Croatia, in the last 1 year, we had a constant, overwhelming idea that the government has a power to change, or media has a power, or education has a power, health system has a power. But honestly, they do not have a power to change people's lives. They have a power to help sometimes, but only God can change people's lives. Only gospel can change person. Only gospel can change individual. Only gospel can change family. Only gospel can change community. And because of that truth, we are under attack by the devil, by the demons, by the world we are living in, because Jesus wants everybody to get saved. Satan doesn't want to. In the end, I would like to encourage you and remind you that the calling you have is from God. It's not from the people. People are part of that, but God has called your name wherever you are, in whatever ministry you are, whatever you are doing, even if it's fruitful and if it's not fruitful. If you have a calling from God, and if you are a child of God, Apostle Peter says he has called us from darkness into light to share his gospel. You have a calling from God, and you have obligation to people around you. It may be your family, it may be the church, it may be the village or city, it may be the country, it may be whoever people are around you in your job. We have to understand, and I would like to encourage you, and I encourage myself, to notice people around us, that we have obligation for them, to speak the only thing that can change their lives, and that is the gospel. May God bless you. May God strengthen you as you are sharing the gospel. May God give you authority as you preach his gospel. May God be with you with his spirit as we are advancing his kingdom. I love this, the theme, Onward with the mission, because the mission is not completed. It's not the end. There is time for us. And before Jesus comes, I know, because Bible speaks, his desire is for everybody to get saved. May God bless you. And next now on our conference will be Leonora Kurti from Kosovo. And I'm calling Leonora to come.